Commonly, it's called adrenal fatigue, but more accurately, it's called the HPA axis dysfunction. And it's when the hypothalamus, pituitary, and adrenals, which work together to help us respond to stress, become dysregulated. So the hypothalamus, which is in the middle of the brain, sends a message to the pituitary, which is a little bit lower, also kind of in the center of the brain. And then the pituitary sends a message to the adrenals, which sit on top of the kidneys. Basically, they're at your waistline, but in the back. So it sends a message to the adrenals, and then that's where the magic happens. The adrenals produce several different hormones, including aldosterone, which regulates blood pressure, cortisol, adrenaline, epinephrine, norepinephrine. All of these are responsible for our fight or flight response, and DHEA, which is a precursor to estrogen and testosterone. So, as you can see, our adrenals are an important part of helping us to respond to our environment, as well as supporting our sexual health and fertility. So they're an important part of our adrenal response. The problem comes when we're in a continual state of stress. And stress can be a psychological state of mind from things like a stressful work environment or disruption within your family, or it can be outside of us too. It can be social unrest or political unrest. Stress can also be physical from things like a physically demanding job, long work hours, working the night shift, not getting enough sleep, or even a chronic infection. Any one of these things can create stress. The problem comes when we're in that state of stress on a regular basis, and our bodies just don't have time to recuperate and heal. And that is what ultimately taxes our adrenals. And the adrenals go through 3 states or 3 phases of decline. The first phase is where cortisol is high. Now, cortisol should start high at the beginning of the day and then taper off as the day goes on. And then at night, melatonin becomes higher and then it's easier to go to sleep. But when your cortisol is high throughout the day, then it creates this just kind of agitated internal feeling. People often feel heart palpitations, they don't sleep well, they have anxiety, things of that nature. The other thing that I see within this first phase is it affects a person's blood pressure. So there are 2 parts to blood pressure, right? There's the systolic number at the top, and then there's the diastolic number at the bottom. The systolic number at the top is about how hard the heart contracts, how the strength of the heart contractions. So when that systolic blood pressure it should be 120. When that's higher, like 140, 150, that's the kind of thing that I see within phase 1. Now, if this continues on and you don't do things to relax and help your adrenals to heal, then that can move into phase 2. And at phase 2, we see low cortisol. And that's also I see low systolic blood pressure. So again, instead of 120, now it's moved down. It's more like 70 or 80. I see also people have like sweaty palms. They're very sensitive to caffeine in particular. Like they get really tired if they drink caffeine in the morning. They crash in the afternoon. They're sensitive to strong odors, and they have a generally like wired and tired feeling. They're tired, but they can't relax. Now, if this goes on again, and we're not doing things to support the adrenals to heal, phase 3 happens, and that's when adrenaline is low. At this point, I also see a blood pressure change, but now it's the diastolic number. It's the lower number. This is the resting vasoconstriction. So it's about the pressure within the blood vessels. And so it should be 120 over 80. This number should be 80. Instead of seeing 80, I see like in the 70s or even in the 60s. And people are tired. They're just exhausted, tired in this phase. They have an inability to deal with stress. They don't like loud noises, people arguing. Sometimes they don't even like to be touched. Brain fog, memory problems start to happen at this stage. And you can even see in more advanced cases, the lower eyelid will droop. As a matter of fact, sometimes you can even see the whites of the eyes on the bottom part of the eye. And I'll tell you, I went through this adrenal crash. And this happened to me when I was studying for my medical board exams. I studied for 6 hours a day, 6 days a week, and I did this for 4 months, and it was crazy. You know, I was started my day at 8 o'clock in the morning with a cup of espresso, ended the day at about 3 or 4 o'clock. But during that time, I was like doing quizzes online with my study buddies. I had a stack of flashcards. It was like this for 6 different days that I did these things. And I used to handwrite out all of my I used to handwrite out all of my herbal formulas and the herbs so I could get my motor neurons involved in memory. And I just was fried. By 3:30, 4 o'clock, I couldn't think anymore. I couldn't do anything. I remember I used to really enjoy watching a telenovela. And when I would sit down to watch this, it was all in Spanish, and my Spanish is not great. So I'd read the subtitles, but I just couldn't understand the subtitles. As I tried to put effort into reading those things, it made me nauseous. I was just fried. You feel like a shell of a person when your adrenals crash, and it's just not a great place to be. So the thing is, we can help with any one of these stages and what it looks like to treat these stages. So if you're in phase 1, so this is the phase where you're just almost feeling like you've had too many cups of coffee. Like there's this internal agitation and anxiety kind of feeling. I have acupuncture protocols that I use to calm down the autonomic nervous system and also to get the cerebrospinal fluid moving again too, which also just calms the body. And I have had patients after we've done these sessions tell me that they feel wonderful. They don't feel that internal agitation. They feel like they can relax and think clearly again. Now for yourself, the things that you can do is to cut back or even stop any sort of stimulants that you're taking, like coffee or tea or nicotine or too much screen time. The blue light in the eyes is very stimulating. So reduce any one of those things. The other thing is regular exercise, right? So that you can kind of discharge this frenetic energy. So get up and walk, walk around the office, go outside, walk around the block on a regular basis, go for walks, take a bike ride, any of those things to help, release that energy is helpful. Now, if you're in phase 2 or 3, this is where I'm going to use more herbs, especially adaptogenic herbs like rhodiola, schisandra, ashwagandha, ginseng. Ginseng, there are several different kinds of ginseng. So, some are very hot, some are a little bit milder, some help the body to retain fluid. So it'll really depend upon the specific person that I'm treating. I also use a lot of chi building formulas at this time. And then we'll use acupuncture to support the kidneys, the adrenals, and digestion. We might also take a look at lung support because a lot of times lung function is compromised when the adrenals are not doing so well. We'll look at diet and we'll look at ways to address stress. We might even do some tapping in the clinic. I'll teach you how to do tapping and things to take with you to help you in your recovery. At this point, we might also do some salivary cortisol testing to determine what your levels look like and where those peaks are happening. The result with all of these is that you'll feel calmer, you'll be able to sleep better, and especially if you're in, the latter 2 phases, you'll have much more energy without feeling agitated. So I hope that helps you to understand what adrenal fatigue is and how we treat it.